Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of your Cast. My name's Gary, and here I am once again. So tell me, how are you doing today? It's a lovely day, sunny day, warm day. Well, ladies and gentlemen, spring has officially been here, has officially come. So yeah, we can do much other than celebrate. I would say it's one of my favorite periods of the year, the warmer seasons. Well, uh, not, nothing really against cold temperatures. I can pretty much enjoy them. Like have a hot coffee or hot chocolate. So they're good too. But I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I really love it more when it's warmer, when the birds are singing, when the sky is blue. I wasn't really enjoying, still being honest, those artificially foggy days that we were having a few weeks ago. But then rains come, cool down a little bit of the hot temperatures, and worse than that, better than that, worse than that, but better for us at the end of the day that the rain took away the dust cloud that was all above us due to the burning areas, burning forests that we unfortunately, thousand times unfortunately, were having and still have. But yeah, that's it. So it's hot, it's warm, it's sunny, it's lovely, but that's no excuse for you not to go grab a cup of water, cold water, beer, juice, whatever it takes for you to relax and join me in this interesting and uplifting, and more importantly than both, English teaching, English learning session about raising bilingual kids. If you have kids, or if you plan to have kids in the future, you probably have already thought about it. Like, where will my kids study? Will English or Spanish or Latin or French or any other important language be present in the curricula? Yeah, you've certainly thought about it, and you're right. This is an important point. So let's see what my big friend and co-host in this podcast, ChatGPT, has got for us about this specific point. Let's go. The first part I'd like to talk about is our brain. As human beings, we have a brain that has been developed and shaped over the millions of years of our evolution on this planet. It has evolved to have us speaking, to have us communicating, all right? So cases of difficulty or impediment on communication are really rare. So, this is very interesting because when we talk about a language, when we talk about language learning, the most interesting and important part, in my opinion, is how our brain stands not only one language, not only one way of communication, but two, three, or even more, right? This is a fascinating example that for me, of how much we humans don't use our full potential, as a species. But that's not my point here. My point here is, what about the kids? What is it in the kids that when we learn things like language, or even better, when we learn languages as kids, so really young, we learn that better, or at least phonetically better. We sound better speaking than when we are grown-ups. All right. Well, I learned, if I didn't make it clear before in the episodes here, I learned English as of the age of 14, 15. I started learning effectively English. I always had it in school. I was always the first in the class as far as English concerned. But I was totally not fluent. I just could read a few things, put a few sentences together, and say a few words here and there. So far from fluency, but as of 14 and 15, I decided I would learn English, and that's what I did. So, but I always had that impression like, hey, if had I learned English, had my parents gone to United States or an English speaking country, or even a country in which English is more it's taught more efficiently, which is not Brazil, the case of Brazil, unfortunately, I would be like way better than I am. I always had this thought in my mind. I'll be very honest, it wasn't until a few years ago that I dropped this completely, that I feel confident enough to go like, hey, it's okay, it didn't make much difference, which I really believe. Had I learned as a kid, or today when I hear myself speaking English, I'll have to be honest, I don't mean to sound cocky or anything, or nosy, or cocky, it's the correct expression, but I feel like, okay, I'm okay, I'm doing a very good job, considering that I learned as a big person, like 15 years old, 16, right, as a teenager slash adult. So yeah, but I always had this, and I still wonder, what is the reason that makes kids learn better? Have you ever thought about it? Well, I think about it all the time, and I observe kids. I like observing kids as far as communication is concerned, like how much they develop communication. I have a 5-year-old daughter here, and ever since she was born, I keep like just watching, like any other parent would, but not only watching and getting delighted from it, but watching and observing that from a linguistic perspective, right? And I realized that it isn't until they're like 2 or 3 years old that they can really that we can really say that they are speaking, because before that they just make random sounds, random noises at some moments, and gesture, right? The gesture, the body language, you can understand them, but like an effective communication, it isn't until they're 2 or 3. But for a second language, I always I live that here in my routine, I would say, and I did notice that before in the routine of parents with kids that they were trying to raise bilingual, meaning they wanted their kids to speak other languages or other language from the cradle, from babies, from toddlers, right? Well, my daughter can speak perfectly Portuguese, of course, and is one of the best, if not the best, in her class as far as English is concerned. The teacher has said that many times before, and it's not a surprise, because, well, her dad is an English teacher, speaks English every day. She hears me speaking English almost every day. When I'm not speaking English, I'm watching things, and 80%, 70% of the things are in English. So yeah, she's got the contact with the language, but she's not fluent. I'm pretty sure if she would meet an American kid, for example, who couldn't speak Portuguese, well, they would be able to communicate, but because they're kids, like the playing and having fun, amusing each other as kids is it's a universal language, right? So they would play, they would still have a good time. But in terms of effective communication, I don't really think that would happen. I want to be wrong. It would be a pleasant surprise if because why am I saying that? Because I speak to her in English, not all the time. Maybe I should. Some people say I should, but I don't know. That's another story. But I notice lots of resistance when I speak English, in terms of, hey, speak Portuguese, I don't understand you, but I don't want to understand you, like there's this, which is totally understandable, because like, pay attention, like if you're a bilingual person, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably a bilingual person, but there's this thing that we are used to, we connect a language to the person. So for example, if you met a person speaking a language, it will be hard, or at least unusual, or a little uncomfortable to speak a different language with that person. even if you both can speak the other language perfectly, because you're used to speak to that person in certain language, you know. So I get it, I understand, you know. That's why we say here in Brazil that homemade saints make no miracle, right? Santo de casa não faz milagre. So yeah, you know, that's true. Yeah, despite I'm an English teacher, I'm teaching people and helping them with their English every day. It's different when it comes to teaching your own kids, isn't it? And now talking about the others, I lived in London for a few years, and I met a couple that had back in the days a 4 or 5 year old boy, okay, and he was like 2 or 3 when they moved to England, when they went to England, and in other words, he practically had his first communication development in England, aka in English, right? And it was, as far when I met this couple, their boy was already in Brazil. He had returned to Brazil, and if my memory serves me well, if my memory isn't playing any tricks, I believe that they moved him to Brazil because he was speaking more English than Portuguese. Well, he was speaking more English than Portuguese. That's a fact, which I don't remember, which I don't recall perfectly. If that happened because he was speaking, because they were afraid he would forget his parents, their language, right? His background, his historical background language, the language of his family. I don't remember exactly, but that's a fact, because he went to school, had a really hard time. They told me that speaking, because he could communicate in Portuguese, and then all of a sudden everyone can only speak different languages, English and other languages around you. So it was a big struggling to that boy. But then 3 months passed, 4 months passed, and the boy was fluent in English. Okay, so they said, and I believe it makes total sense. So by the age of 5, he didn't want to speak Portuguese, although he could understand his parents. He didn't want to, you know, and they were not okay with that. I don't agree. I think that I don't know, they didn't make the right decision in my opinion. But that's it. That's you know, I'm just sharing this memory with you guys to show how much a bilingual brain is not only advantages. Of course, most of it is are advantages, but I'm gonna talk more about it in a minute. But just to show the effective moments, in the practical moments of reality, what it feels like, what it is like, what is the contrast with family, what it takes for a kid to really start speaking a language in a few months. In this case, go into the country, So there, I'm telling you guys this to just make a point, to say, hey, we talk about bilingual kids. It's not something that you can do just because you pay English classes for your daughter or for your son. This is not that simple. Unless the kid is a prodigy in languages, well, that's the case, all right. Communication languages, that's the case, all right. But a normal kid, an average kid, would probably not get fluent, only with English classes. A good combo of English classes in a very good school and a good household, that could present some more progress, some more results. But other than that, I don't see that happening. There's a friend of mine who lives in England. He's been there for the past 10 years, and he has an 11-year-old daughter, and he makes sometimes YouTube videos. And I noticed that the girl, he and his wife are Brazilian, are Brazilians, and I noticed that their daughter can understand everything they say, but she only replies to them in English. You don't hear anything unless when they ask her to say some specific words here and there, but you can see that she's very uncomfortable speaking the language, you know? So I'm also sharing this story to show that a bilingual brain is something that is a bilingual brain as a kid, a bilingual kid history, you know? It is something that is developed over the years. Because at first, the kid won't feel comfortable speaking two languages. It's not common, that's what I'm trying to say. Certainly there are exceptions, certainly, absolutely, certainly there are exceptions, but my experience, my history has shown me that the kids choose one language, even if they can communicate effortlessly in both, they will prefer one over the other, all right? That's a fact, you know. Most of the cases, the kids would kind of deny the other language, even if it's their parents' language. But in some cases, even in cases where the kid can communicate in both, there is a preferred one. Okay, kids, in my opinion, again, guys, I'm just saying it. I'm not presenting any study or anything. Don't take my word as an expert in this part. But I have the impression that the bilingualism is something that it's made for grown-ups, for adults. Although, of course, it is very, very important that the kids have contact with foreign languages, and that's what I brought you guys here to talk about. So let's start talking about it. Better than that, let's read what ChatGPT, as I said, my co-host here, has brought to us about the advantages, the top 10 advantages of raising kids in a bilingual household. Advantage number 1, cognitive development. Bilingual kids often have enhanced cognitive abilities, such as problem solving, multitasking, and better memory retention. Yeah, this is so true. It happens. It is observed. Okay, ChatGPT here doesn't mention to make the text shorter than it would any references, but there are studies showing, and evidencing all of the points that it has brought here. Okay. Number 2, better academic performance. Learning 2 languages can improve overall academic skills, including literacy and comprehension in both languages. Yeah, that's what I said. The kid will bring this to their adult life, and it isn't until they're in their 20s that they will talk to their colleagues, maybe even earlier, but something around their 20s. They're gonna talk to their colleagues and they're gonna realize that bilingual or even polyglots, multilinguists are very, very rare. It's not so common, at least not in America as a whole. And this is actually a cool thing. And then they're gonna start cherishing and paying the due respect to their parents' language or the other languages that they've learned as they grew up. Number 3, cultural awareness. Bilingual children are more likely to develop a deeper understanding and appreciation of different cultures, fostering empathy and openness. Yeah, this is so true, because that's what I always say. A language is never only a language. It is history, it is culture, it is people. So yeah, every time you learn a new language, you're inevitably opening a big door, a big golden door to a vast ocean of possible experiences, and some of them inevitable experiences, good experiences, of course. 4, enhanced communication skills. They can communicate with a wider range of people, breaking language barriers and facilitating deeper connections across cultures. Yeah, this is more specific for parents living abroad, right? So they have their first language at home and they can communicate and will communicate with people outside of this environment. 5, future career opportunities. Being bilingual is a highly desirable skill in the global job market, providing more professional opportunities in various fields. Yeah, this is a no-brainer. Everyone knows that. You know that everyone knows that. This is probably one of the reasons why you're here, because you're trying to perfect your English, and probably this is one of the reasons, right? Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. That's great. 6. Improve problem-solving skills. Bilingualism enhances critical thinking and the ability to approach challenges from different perspectives. Yeah, this is a big surprise for many people. Some people even think that this is kind of an urban language, an urban theory. No, urban legend. Sorry, guys. Urban legend. Yeah, lenda urbana. Some people think it's an urban, kind of an urban legend, but it isn't. It isn't. There are studies saying that the ability to solve problems, especially logical problems, are people who can speak 2 or more languages have an advantage over it. Despite if the second language was acquired as a grown-up. This is an important point to be done. Most of what we're reading here not only applies for people who learn a second or a third language as kids or teenagers. No, it applies to everybody. But of course, as I said at the beginning of this episode, it has a deeper impact over children, of course, over children's brain. Number 7, greater social interaction. Speaking 2 languages allows children to engage with diverse communities, which can lead to richer social experiences. Yeah, this is so true. 8, delay in cognitive decline. Research suggests that bilingualism can delay the onset of cognitive decline in diseases like Alzheimer's later in life. This is amazing, guys. That's why I don't have to recommend it to you, because if you're here, you're probably Brazilian. If you're not Brazilian, if you're American and listening to our episode just because you find it fun or funny, so be it. Not a problem. You're welcome. But of course, you're probably here, most likely here because you're Brazilian. You're a Brazilian who needs to improve their English, and that's it. That's the point. That's the thing. Number 9, stronger family connections. For families with heritage in another language, bilingualism can help children connect with relatives and preserve cultural tradition. Yeah, this is so obvious but so true and important to be said. 10, increased creativity. The ability to switch between languages promotes flexibility in thinking, which can enhance creativity abilities. Guys, just to finish it off, our brain is made of connections. Okay, everything we have, from the memory of your first kiss to the memory of what you have to do today, or what you did yesterday, it is all complex and incredible net of connections. Okay, an Alzheimer, bringing it in a quite simple approach. Why? Even because I am specifically because I'm not an expert in the area, but it attacks these lines, these wires, so to say, in our brain. Okay, so when you know a second language, is as if you had a different, putting it in a very rough perspective, of course, but it is as if you had different paths, different connections, different ways to the same places, to converging places. Okay, so yeah, it will make it harder for Alzheimer to really operate big damage when you have lots of connections that take to the same places, to conversion places. There are even stories. The famous Brazilian rock star, what is his name? The lead singer of Paralamas do Sucesso, Herbert Viana. He had an accident in the early 20s, in the early 2000s, and he had a plane crash. He was, a plane crash, and he was unconscious. When he woke up a few days later or hours later, he could only speak English, because his wife was, and unfortunately she died in this very same accident, she was English, and he could speak English. He could understand perfectly Portuguese, but he could only communicate in English. What a crazy outcome, right? Of course, a few days later, everything came back to him. But you see how mysterious our brain can be, and how much, you know, learning a language can preserve certain connections. That's what I'm trying to say, you know, that you would have lost easier if you hadn't, basically, if you hadn't had it. Let me put it this way. All right, guys, that's it for today. Thank you so very much for your lovely company. I see you in the next episode. Bye.